Hello, we will be going over Unit 1, Section 1.2, but this is just the beginning of your notes for geometry. Even if it says Section 1.2, this correlates with the textbook. But today we're doing Unit 1, Day 1. And when we always start geometry, we start with the smallest uh, part, which is a point, and then we go through a line and plane. So when we're done with this note, you'll be able to identify and model what a point is, what a line is, and what a plane is. And also you'll be able to identify collinear, coplanar points, and intersecting lines and planes in a space. So just make sure you guys understand what is the objective that we're trying to cover in this specific one. So the first one is, most of it is just definition, okay? Uh, we will get to doing the actual problem solving when we go to day 2 of the note. So here they define, so this is what the word we're trying to define. A point has no dimension, okay? And I know this is a tiny space to write with, and it represent it's a location on the plane, and it's represented by a small dot. Okay, as you guys can see, this is a point, and every time you're trying to name a point, you use capital letter. Okay, you use capital letter to name a point. So example, in this case, this is called point R. Okay, so when I put the dot next to it, or sometimes you might see it as, I will write down the whole what it is, and I said, oh, this is point R. Okay, and that's something we do to represent. So the second definition we're going to go over is a line. A line has one dimension. Remember, point has no dimension, but a line has one dimension. Okay, and it is an infinite set of points. So what it means is, when you look at a line, it has, so if I'm looking at this line, it is made of points. Like this is points on the line, and when you connect them, it kind of gives you a line. But that's why the definition called infinite set of point, represented by a line with two arrowheads. So remember, and that extends without end. The arrowheads, like this arrowheads at the end of the line, represent it goes to the right infinitely, and it goes to the left infinitely. Through every line, even if we're saying it has infinite point, though every line contains infinite points. That's what we said, right? Infinitely many points. I guess I should add many here. A line can be drawn between any 2 points. Okay, so when we're defining, even if a line is contain infinitely many points, as I just showed you here, but when we're defining a line, we will say, oh, between any 2 points, I can have a line. Okay, so how do we name this line? Okay, so we talked about how we name a point, but when we start trying to name a line, we can use a single lowercase letter. That is here, as you guys can see. So that sometimes they use this B to name it like this with the cursive way. So I can use a single or one lowercase letter. Okay, so if we use one letter, I can say this is line B, and it's kind of like, or I can use any of the two, any 2 points or any two letters, the capital letters, I guess. Capital letters, sorry. Okay, so any two capital letters. So in this case, I have D, I have G, E, F. So any of the two, I can name this line as, I can use the endpoints, which is DF, but I have to use capital and put this, or I can use GE as long as I use the arrow, or I can use EF or FG, because since it has an arrow, it goes into the F direction, it goes into the G direction, and infinitely in both directions. So it's not gonna make any difference which two letters you use. You're still naming the same line. Alright, so now the next definition is going to be collinear and non-collinear, a plane and naming a plane. So what is a collinear? Okay, I'm sure you guys know what co means, right? So when we're talking about collinear, we need at least 2 points on the same line. So we said collinear, we can just put at least 2 points on the line, on the same line. Okay, that's important. Okay, as you guys know, I'm sure, coplanar, collinear. Co means together. Together. Okay, together. And in this case, I can go up and show you, for example, the here line in this example here. From this, I can say points G, E, F are collinear points, okay, because they're on the same line. But if I say, well, what about G, E, and H? See how G, E is on this line, but H is over here? That becomes non-collinear points, okay? So the definition for non-collinear is points not on the same line, and this would be an example for it. So I can say G, E, even you can put F, H. Because H is not on the same line, these points are considered to be non-collinear. Okay, so just try to remember the rule, what makes it collinear, what makes it non-collinear. A plane has two dimensions, and then extends without an end. Even if you look at this parallelogram, it looks like it has limitation, but it can stretch, in all directions. That's why it says without an end. It is often represented by a parallelogram, and how do we name it? We're going to use capital letters, okay? And um, when you're naming the capital letters, make sure this is really important. The points you use have to be non-collinear. Okay, 3 non-collinear points define a plane. So I cannot name this plane XVZ because XVZ represent a line, not a plane. Okay, or I can use this small letter, like this kind of letter, to name it. Okay, so I don't like to call it small letter, but I can name this plane R, and then it's just a special character like this. Or we can name it, put the picture next to it, and name it as R. Or I can just say, oh, this is plane W, Y, X. If you wanted to continue adding VZ, you can. But as long as you have the 3 letters, it represents the plane. So, okay, so just remember, it needs to be non-collinear points. That's why it's important you know what is collinear means. Points on the same line. When it is non-collinear, then they're not on the same line. Okay, very good. So we're going to go to the next page. Now we're going to do what is coplanar. Remember, co is together, planar, plane. Points in the same plane, right? All right, so points in the same plane is what we have to say. So let me change the color. Okay, and oh, in this case, you have this example to represent. So this is what I'm looking at. So which one is going to be points, a coplanar point? So if you look at the plane at the bottom here, it's kind of hard to draw a straight line with this. So we're looking at the bottom plane. So I can say points like M, X, G, R, N are coplanar. They're all at the bottom. Or I can use the top one, which is T, Q, P, W. They are coplanar points. They're on the same plane, and they're on the top or either at the bottom. When it comes to non-coplanar points, points that do not lie in the same plane. So to give you an example, I can kind of mix what I have here. So as you guys can see, for the top one, the bottom one, I pick this piece, right? And the top one. So if I mix match them, so I can say, well, let's see if I started with M, X, so you can see how MX is at the bottom, right? Point MXR is at the bottom, right? And then what if I added P? So M is here, X is here, R is here, but P is over here. So that makes it non-coplanar because this here is coplanar. But if I added P into it, then that becomes non-coplanar, okay? Not on the same plane. Right. When we go to the next one, which says intersecting, two lines intersect at a point, okay? So it's usually easy to see, like if you have your two pencils crossing each other, that is going to be their intersection. So in this case, I can proudly show you this NP. So this line here is intersecting M. See how where the two intersect, which is this point, which is point N. N will be the intersection. But if we have two planes, the two planes intersect at a line. Okay, and you can clearly see that it is. I don't know if you can, but you can. I have let's kind of label this plane the red plane. See how I have it, and then I'll use blue to label this plane here on the top. So where do the two intersect? See how these two intersect on this yellow line here? The top and the side plane. So the intersection will be WP for them. Okay. And we'll go more on this when we get to class. The line segment consists of two endpoints. So they start and end. All the points in between them. So they have an initial point and they have an ending point. Okay, so don't forget that. So in this case, AB is a line segment, and when we name a line segment, we use the capital letters, and we want to make sure we use the dots, not the arrows. I can also name this as BA and have it right this way. Okay, so the next one is array. It has one endpoint. Okay, so let me use a different color because the yellow one might be And as you guys can see, it starts from B and it goes to C direction, right? So when I write this ray, I can write B, C, and the initial point is B and it's going to this direction, okay? Or I can name it at CB, but remember, since the initial point is B, I have to flip the arrow. The initial point is B, is going to the C direction. If I name it as like CB, let me use red, CB, and put this, I'm not naming the same ray, because this ray names a ray that starts at C goes to B direction, but this ray starts at B and go to C direction. So just make sure you pay attention to that one. And what is opposite rays? This is the last definition we're going to go over. Rays that goes in opposite direction. As the word itself says it here, they go to opposite direction. That means they have the same initial point, but they're going into opposite direction. So in this case, the one in the middle is E, so one goes E to the F direction, and the other one goes to E to D direction. So gotta make sure E is the initial point, one goes to D, so you're gonna write it this way, E, D, and E, F are opposite direction. Okay, it starts from E, and if you want to make it visual, so you can kind of do it this way. All right, one goes to D direction, and EF goes to this direction, if you want to do it, but both way naming it is going to be the same. So I want you guys to take the time and use this side. The summary is given for you guys to summarize. What did you learn? What is the new thing you learned from this note? So write it down, and if you have any question or something that you are confused, bring it back to class, and then we'll talk about it, okay?